"I've known Julian forever," Simone Carter said, her voice smooth as velvet, slicing through the opulent hum of Luciel's chandelier-lit dining room. She raised her Bordeaux glass, her black dress shimmering, a smile sharp with irony. Across the table, Dr. Julian Brooks, her husband, froze, his eyes wide with dread, while Vanessa Reed, his mistress, clutched her pearl necklace, her face paling. "To leave a pregnant wife for true love," Simone continued, posing as an old friend, her words dripping venom. "That's a story worth celebrating. To your wedding." The crowd gasped, glasses clinked, and Simone's triumph burned bright. Dr. Evelyn Hayes's tale of betrayal and bold revenge begins here, a fire kindled in pain. Share where and when you're reading this tale of betrayal and triumph in the comments below. Simone Carter's fingers trembled as she sliced strawberries, the knife catching the morning light with a glint that felt too sharp for the quiet penthouse. Her breath hitched, a faint hitch in her chest, as if the air itself had grown thin. Lila's laughter drifted from the living room, a cascade of innocence that made Simone's throat tighten. She glanced at the ultrasound photo taped to the fridge, her second child, a faint promise of life beneath her skin, and her heart stuttered. The kitchen, with its marble counters and sterile gleam, felt like a stage where she played a role she no longer recognized. The devoted wife, the perfect mother. But something was wrong. She could feel it, a pulse of unease beneath her ribs. She set the knife down, her hands steadying as she wiped them on a dish towel. Julian's briefcase sat on the counter, a black leather sentinel, its clasp glinting like an accusation. He'd left it open last night, careless, as if daring her to look. Her fingers brushed the leather, cool and unyielding, and her pulse quickened. She shouldn't, but the weight of his late nights, his distracted glances, his cologne lingering too long in the air, they pressed against her like a bruise. She opened it. A folded paper slipped out, a credit card statement. Her eyes scanned the lines and her breath caught. A charge for $3,000 at Le Ciel, a restaurant she'd never set foot in. Another for $8,000 at Cartier. Her fingers traced the numbers, searching for a memory of a gift she hadn't received. Her stomach twisted, a slow, cold coil. Julian's voice echoed from last weekend. "Medical conference, Simone. Don't wait up." Her jaw clenched, teeth grinding softly as she tucked the statement into her pocket. She moved to the laptop on the counter, Julian's email still logged in, his password unchanged since their college days. A few clicks revealed a confirmation. A suite at a Paris hotel, booked for two, dated last weekend. Her heart thudded, a drumbeat of betrayal. She opened Instagram, her fingers shaking as she typed, "Vanessa Reed." Dr. Vanessa Reed's face appeared, all sharp cheekbones and curated charm, her dark curls framing a pearl necklace that gleamed like a taunt. The caption read, "A gift from someone special." Simone's vision blurred, but she blinked it away, her nails biting into her palms. The pieces fit too perfectly, a puzzle she hadn't wanted to solve. "Mommy, look!" Lila's voice broke through, bright and oblivious. Simone turned, forcing a smile as her 6-year-old held up a drawing of a rainbow, her brown eyes sparkling. "It's for you and Daddy." Simone knelt, her knees pressing into the cold floor, and pulled Lila close, the scent of strawberry shampoo grounding her. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice steady despite the storm inside. But her eyes drifted to the ultrasound, to the life she'd carried for Julian, for their family. He chose her. She stood, her movements mechanical, as she packed Lila's lunchbox, a star-shaped sandwich, a note folded into a heart. Her fingers lingered on the note, her handwriting steady. "You're my star, Lila." She sealed the container, her gaze catching on the wedding photo above the fireplace. She and Julian, younger, laughing, her white dress glowing under the sunlight. Her chest ached, but her lips pressed into a thin line. "You picked the wrong woman," she murmured, her voice a blade she hadn't known she wielded. The front door clicked open. Julian's footsteps echoed, heavy, deliberate. He entered, his tailored suit crisp, his dark hair flecked with gray. "Morning," he said, his voice smooth but distant, eyes already on his phone. Simone's fingers tightened on the counter's edge, her knuckles paling. Long night at the hospital? She asked, her tone light, but her eyes searched his face for the man she'd loved through sleepless nights and shared dreams. Complex case, he muttered, scrolling. He grabbed a coffee mug, his movements brisk, avoiding her gaze. Simone's heart sank, but her spine straightened. She slid a plate of toast toward him, her smile a mask. Lila made you a drawing, she said, watching his reaction. He glanced at it, nodded absently. Cute. I'm late. He turned away, leaving the air heavy with his indifference. Simone's nails dug into her palms, the pain sharp, grounding. She wouldn't cry. Not here, not now. She busied herself with Lila's backpack, her movements precise, clinical, but the statement in her pocket burned, a silent accusation. She glanced at Julian, his back to her, already halfway out the door. Conference call tonight, he called over his shoulder. Might be late. The door shut, and the silence pressed against her like a weight. She crossed to the wedding photo, lifting it from its hook. The glass was cold, the image a lie she'd believed too long. Her reflection stared back, eyes tired but fierce, jaw set like steel. You thought I'd break, she whispered, her breath fogging the glass. She set the frame face down, the act final, a suture closing a wound. Lila ran in, clutching her drawing. Mommy, can we give this to Daddy? Simone knelt, cupping her daughter's face, her thumbs brushing soft cheeks. We'll make him a new one, baby, she said, her voice soft but unyielding. Lila nodded, trusting, and Simone's heart cracked, but didn't shatter. She stood, pulling out her phone. Her fingers hovered over Nia's contact, then typed, Need a favor. Le Ciel Restaurant. How do I make it unforgettable? Nia's reply came fast. Girl, what are you planning? Spill. Simone's lips curved, not quite a smile. She didn't know the plan yet, but she felt it forming, sharp and precise, like a blade being honed. The statement in her pocket, the email, the necklace. They were her instruments now. She'd been a designer, crafting beauty from chaos. She could craft something else. Justice. Simone tucked Lila's drawing into her backpack, her hands steady. The penthouse felt smaller, the walls closing in, but she stood taller. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about Lila, the baby in her womb, the woman she'd buried under years of sacrifice. She'd protect them all, no matter the cost. The game had begun, and Simone Carter was ready to play. Simone Carter's breath steamed against the cold coffee mug, her fingers tracing its rim as Lila's giggles echoed from the living room. The penthouse hummed with morning light, but her chest felt heavy, as if the air carried the weight of Julian's lies. The credit card statement lay folded on her desk, a silent indictment beside the laptop screen, glowing with Vanessa Reed's Instagram. Pearls gleaming, a smile that mocked. Simone's pulse thrummed, not with pain now, but with purpose. Her eyes narrowed, a spark igniting where tears might have pooled. She wasn't the woman who waited anymore. She was the one who acted. She opened her phone, Naya's last message blinking. Girl, Le Ciel? Are you planning a war or a party? Simone's lips twitched, a shadow of a smile. Both, she murmured, typing back. Find me someone who can get me the whole place. Saturday night. Her fingers moved with the precision of a designer sketching a blueprint, each tap a line drawn in a plan she could feel taking shape. She didn't know the endgame yet, but the edges were sharp, lethal. The phone rang, Nia's voice crackling with excitement. Simone, you're serious? Le Ciel's the kind of place you need a trust fund to breathe in. What's the play? Simone leaned back, her chair creaking softly. I want it booked, all of it. For Julian. Her voice was low, steady, a blade sliding from its sheath. Nia whistled. You're scary when you're pissed. I know a guy. Give me an hour. Simone nodded to the empty room, her heart a drumbeat of resolve. She hung up, her gaze drifting to Lila, stacking blocks into a wobbly tower. Higher, Mommy, Lila called, her grin wide. Simone's throat tightened, but she forced a smile. Sky's the limit, baby. She stood, crossing to her closet. Her fingers brushed silk and cashmere, pausing on a black dress, its lines sleek, unforgiving. She pulled it out, holding it against her body, the fabric cool against her skin. In the mirror, her reflection stared back, eyes fierce, jaw set, the swell of her belly a quiet strength. She wasn't just dressing for Saturday. She was armoring herself. She booked a salon appointment, her voice crisp as she requested sleek waves, bold makeup. "Make me unforgettable," she told the stylist over the phone, her pulse quickening at the words. Her laptop pinged. An email from Lachelle's manager confirmed her request. The entire restaurant Saturday $100,000 charged to Julian's card. Caviar, vintage Bordeaux, a menu to make empires weep. Simone's fingers hovered over the keyboard, then typed a reply. Add a floral arrangement. White roses. Like a wedding. Her lips curled, sharp and deliberate. She'd heard Julian's distracted excuse about a conference call that morning, felt the lie in his fleeting glance. He thought he could hide. She'd make sure he was seen. She called Marcus, her old PR friend from her design days, his voice warm but curious. "Simone, a party at Le Ciel? You back in the game?" She leaned against the counter, her nails tapping softly. "Not a party, a spectacle. Spread the word. Julian Brooks is announcing something big Saturday night. Invite his colleagues, a few reporters. Make it sound exclusive." Marcus chuckled. "You're trouble, Carter. I'm in." She hung up, her chest tight with a mix of dread and exhilaration. She pictured Julian's face, pale and stunned, Vanessa's smile crumbling under the weight of a room's eyes. Her hand brushed her belly, a silent vow. "For you. For Lila." She opened Instagram again, Vanessa's latest story loading, a flash of red dress, a cocktail glass, a bar near Julian's hospital. Simone's jaw clenched, her fingers saving the clip to her growing file of evidence. She didn't need more proof, but each piece was a brick in the wall she was building, unyielding and cold. She pulled out a notepad, scribbling, "Julian and Vanessa. Wedding. Le Ciel." The words felt like a spell, one she'd cast with precision. She added, "Make him pay." Her pen pressed harder, ink bleeding into the paper. Lila's voice broke through. "Mommy, you okay?" She stood in the doorway, clutching a stuffed bunny, her eyes wide with a child's intuition. Simone knelt, pulling her close, the warmth of her daughter's body a tether to reality. "I'm okay, sweetheart," she said, her voice soft but firm, "just planning something special." Lila grinned, oblivious, and ran back to her blocks. Simone's eyes stung, but she blinked it away, standing taller. She crossed to the window, the Manhattan skyline glittering like a challenge. Her phone buzzed. Nia again. Le Ciel's locked in. "You're insane, and I love it." Simone's fingers tightened around the phone, her reflection faint in the glass. She saw the woman she'd been, yielding, patient, a shadow of Julian's ambition. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone new, someone who'd turned his betrayal into her triumph. She slipped into the black dress, testing its weight, its power. The mirror reflected a warrior, her eyes blazing, her belly a curve of defiance. "You thought I'd fade," she whispered, her breath fogging the glass. "You thought wrong." Her phone pinged again. Marcus, confirming the guest list. She scanned the names. Julian's chief of surgery, a gossip columnist, a rival doctor. Perfect. Simone tucked the notepad away, her plan crystallizing. Saturday would be more than a scene. It would be a reckoning. She'd raise a glass, speak words that cut deeper than any knife, and leave Julian to choke on the cost. Her heart raced, not with fear, but with the thrill of control. She glanced at Lila, building her tower higher, unaware of the storm her mother was brewing. Simone's lips curved, sharp and certain. She wasn't just planning a night. She was forging a blade, and it would strike true. Simone Carter's heels clicked against the marble floor of Le Ciel, each step a pulse in the charged air. The restaurant shimmered under chandeliers, their light fracturing into prisms that danced across her black dress. She sat at a corner table, half hidden by a velvet curtain, her fingers curled around a glass of Bordeaux, the wine's deep red catching the glow like blood. Her heart thudded, a steady rhythm beneath her ribs, but her face was a mask, eyes sharp, lips poised. The room buzzed with the low hum of New York's elite, their whispers thick with anticipation. She'd summoned them here, through Marcus's deft whispers, for Julian's big announcement. Her pulse quickened at the thought, a spark of fire in her veins. She scanned the room, her gaze slicing through the crowd. White roses adorned every table, their petals soft but deliberate, a nod to the wedding she'd scripted for tonight. The place settings gleamed, each bearing a card embossed with Brooks and Reed in gold script. Her lips twitched, a flicker of satisfaction. She'd turn their secret into a stage, and they'd walk onto it blind. Her hand brushed the folded note in her clutch, her speech, her weapon, honed to cut deep. She sipped the wine, its bite sharp on her tongue, grounding her. The door swung open. Julian entered first, his suit crisp but his shoulders tense, as if sensing a trap. Vanessa followed, her red dress clinging to her frame, her smile practiced but faltering as she took in the crowd. Simone's chest tightened, her breath catching at the sight of the pearl necklace glinting at Vanessa's throat. The same one from the Cartier charge. Her fingers tightened around the glass, knuckles whitening, but she forced her hand to relax. Not yet. She watched them move to the center table. Julian's eyes darting, Vanessa's hand grazing his arm. They hadn't seen her. Good. A waiter approached her, his voice low. Ms. Carter, everything's set. The bill's prepared as requested. Simone nodded, her gaze never leaving Julian. Thank you, she said, her voice smooth, a velvet sheath over steel. The waiter slipped away, and she leaned back, her dress shimmering as she shifted. The room felt smaller, the air thick with the weight of what was coming. She pictured Lila's drawing, taped to the fridge, its rainbow a promise she'd keep. This wasn't just for her, it was for her daughter, for the child stirring in her womb, for the woman she'd buried under Julian's ambition. A murmur rippled through the crowd. A gossip columnist in a sequin gown leaned toward a doctor, whispering, "Is this an engagement?" The doctor shrugged, eyes flicking to Julian. Simone's lips curved, sharp and fleeting. Let them wonder. She stood, her movements fluid, deliberate, the dress hugging her curves like armor. The room seemed to pause, heads turning as she stepped into the light, the Bordeaux glass glinting in her hand. Her heels struck the floor, a metronome of intent, each step pulling the air taut. Julian's head snapped up, his eyes meeting hers. His face paled, a flicker of recognition, then dread. Vanessa froze, her fingers twitching on her clutch. Simone stopped a few feet from their table, her presence a quiet storm. The room hushed, glasses clinking softly as guests leaned forward, sensing a scene. She raised her glass, the wine catching the light, and her voice rang out, clear and smooth, laced with a sweetness that cut like glass. "Good evening, everyone," she said, her eyes locked on Julian's. "I'm so thrilled to be here, celebrating such a momentous occasion." Her lips curved, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Julian's jaw tightened, his hand gripping the table's edge. Vanessa's smile wavered, her eyes darting to the crowd. Simone tilted her head, her voice dropping to a velvet purr. "I heard Julian and Vanessa have something extraordinary to share. I couldn't miss it." A guest coughed, breaking the silence. A reporter scribbled furiously, her pen scratching like a heartbeat. Simone's pulse roared, but her hand was steady, the glass a prop in her performance. She thought of the ultrasound, Leela's laughter, the years she'd poured into a man who'd chosen another. Her chest ached, but she channeled it, letting it fuel her words. "Julian's always been full of surprises," she said, her tone light but edged with venom. "Isn't that right, darling?" Julian opened his mouth, but no sound came. Vanessa's fingers clutched her necklace, her knuckles pale. Simone's smile widened, a blade unsheathed. She felt the room's eyes on her, their curiosity a weight she wielded. Her hand brushed her belly, a fleeting touch, grounding her. She'd planned this moment, rehearsed it in the dark hours of the night. But standing here, she felt alive, electric. The pain of Julian's betrayal was still there, a bruise beneath her ribs, but it was no longer her master. She took a step closer, her voice lowering, intimate, as if speaking only to them. "I just had to be here," she said, her eyes flicking to Vanessa, then back to Julian. "To witness what comes next." The words hung heavy, a promise, and a threat. Vanessa's lips parted, but she said nothing, her confidence crumbling. Julian's eyes searched Simone's, pleading for a reprieve she wouldn't give. A waiter hovered nearby, a silent ally. Simone nodded slightly, and he slipped a folded envelope onto the table, its weight nudging Julian's glass. She raised her glass higher, her voice ringing out. "To new beginnings," she said, the words dripping with irony. The crowd murmured, some raising their glasses, others whispering. Julian's hand twitched toward the envelope, his face a mask of dread. Simone turned, her dress flaring, and walked toward the exit. Her heart pounded, a wild rhythm of triumph and fury. She didn't look back, didn't need to. She felt their eyes on her, felt the room shift under her power. The night air waited outside, cool and sharp, ready to meet her. She was no longer the woman who'd waited in shadows. She was the storm, and she was just beginning. Simone Carter stood at the heart of Le Ciel, the chandelier light fracturing across her black dress like a constellation of rage. The air was thick, the crowd's murmurs a low hum, their eyes pinned to her as she held the Bordeaux glass aloft. Julian's face was a mask of ash, his fingers frozen on the table's edge, while Vanessa's hand clutched her pearl necklace, her smile a brittle thing cracking under Simone's gaze. The envelope lay between them, unopened, its weight a silent bomb. Simone's heart thundered, but her lips curved, a smile sharp as a scalpel. She'd rehearsed this moment, tasted it in the dark, but now with every eye on her, it felt like fire in her veins. She tilted her glass, the wine catching the light, and her voice sliced through the hush, smooth as silk, sharp as glass. "I'm an old friend of Julian's," she said, her eyes locked on his, watching the panic flicker in his gaze. "And I have to say, it's inspiring to see what he's overcome." Her tone dripped with honeyed venom, each word a calculated cut. Julian's jaw clenched, his knuckles whitening. Vanessa's breath hitched, her fingers twitching like a trapped bird's wings. Simone stepped closer, her heels clicking, deliberate, a metronome of doom. "To leave a pregnant wife," she continued, her voice low, intimate but carrying to every corner of the room, "and choose Vanessa. Well, that takes courage." Gas rippled through the crowd, forks clinking against plates. A reporter's pen scratched furiously. A doctor's wife leaned forward, eyes wide. Simone's pulse roared, but her hand was steady, her smile unwavering. "A love story for the ages," she said, raising her glass higher. "To your wedding, Julian and Vanessa. May it be as unforgettable as tonight." The room erupted in hesitant applause, a jagged wave of sound. Julian's mouth opened, a choke sound escaping, but no words formed. Vanessa's face flushed crimson, her hand dropping the necklace as if it burned. Simone's chest tightened, not with pain, but with triumph, a wildfire blazing through the ashes of her hurt. She thought of Lila's rainbow drawing, of the child stirring in her womb, and her resolve hardened, unyielding as stone. This wasn't just revenge, it was reclamation. She set the envelope on the table, her fingers brushing its edge, the paper heavy with the $100,000 bill inside. "Julian, you've always been generous," she said, her voice a purr, loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. "Thank you for covering this celebration." The words landed like a slap, and Julian flinched, his eyes darting to the envelope. Vanessa's lips parted, a protest dying in her throat as Simone's gaze pinned her, cold and unrelenting. A waiter hovered, his nod subtle, confirming the bill was charged to Julian's card. Simone's lips twitched, a flicker of satisfaction. She turned, her dress flaring like a dark flame, and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted, their whispers trailing her like smoke. "Who is she?" a woman murmured. "Did she say pregnant wife?" a man hissed. Simone's heart pounded, a drumbeat of victory, but her steps never faltered. She felt Julian's stare burning into her back, Vanessa's silence a wound she'd carved herself. Outside, the New York night hit her like a wave, cool and sharp, the city's pulse syncing with her own. She paused on the sidewalk, her breath visible in the crisp air, and pulled her coat tighter, the fabric a shield against the world. Her phone buzzed. "Julian." "Simone, what the hell was that? We need to talk." Her thumb hovered, then swiped the message away, deleting it. She didn't owe him words. Not anymore. Her fingers brushed her belly, a soft curve beneath the coat, and she closed her eyes, picturing Lila's smile, the ultrasound's faint outline. The pain of Julian's betrayal still lingered, a bruise deep in her chest, but it no longer owned her. She'd turned it into something else. Power, precision, a blade she'd wielded with surgical grace. The memory of Julian's ashen face, Vanessa's crumbling poise, fueled her, a spark that refused to fade. A cab honked nearby, jarring her back. She stepped forward, her heels striking the pavement, each step a declaration. The skyline glittered, a tapestry of light and shadow, and she felt its energy course through her. She'd lit the match tonight, set their world ablaze, and left them to choke on the smoke. Her phone buzzed again. Marcus, her PR friend. "You're trending. Reporters are losing it. Call me." She smiled, sharp and fleeting, and slipped the phone into her clutch. He flinched, his eyes searching hers for a trace of the woman who'd once loved him. He found none. "Simone, please," he whispered. But she turned away, her hands trembling, as she poured batter onto the griddle, the sizzle loud in the silence. Lila's voice piped up. "Daddy!" She ran to him, arms wide, and Julian knelt, hugging her tightly, his eyes glistening. Simone watched, her heart twisting, but her resolve held firm. She wouldn't let his guilt sway her. Not this time. "Breakfast ready," she said, her voice cold, a dismissal. Julian stood, his movements slow, defeated. "We'll talk later," he said, more to himself than to her, and left. The doors click, a hollow echo. Simone's breath shuddered, but she steadied it, flipping pancakes with a precision that belied the storm inside. Lila chattered about school, unaware, and Simone forced a smile, her fingers brushing her daughter's hand. She sat, picking at her food, her mind racing. Another buzz, Claire again. Hospital boards asking about Julian. "Your move shook things up." Simone's lips curved, a shadow of a smile. She'd lit the match and the flames were spreading. Her hand rested on her belly, the baby's faint kick a reminder of what she fought for. The pain of Julian's betrayal was still there, a shard lodged deep, but it no longer ruled her. She was rewriting her story, line by line, and he'd feel every word. Simone cleared the plates, her movements deliberate, as Lila ran to grab her backpack. The penthouse felt lighter, as if the air itself had shifted. She opened her laptop, saving a new screenshot, a colleague's ex-post about Julian's scandal. Her fingers hovered, then typed a reply to Claire. "File everything. No mercy." She hit send, her heart pounding with a fierce, quiet triumph. The skyline outside gleamed, a challenge she was ready to meet. Julian had underestimated her, but she was no longer his shadow. She was the fire, and she'd burn his world to ash. Simone Carter's fingers danced across the sketchpad, charcoal smudging her skin as she outlined a sleek lobby design, curves and light weaving into something bold, alive. Her new Soho office hummed with possibility, fabric swatches scattered on the desk, a mood board pinned with bursts of color. Her pulse thrummed, steady, fierce, like a heartbeat claiming its rhythm after too long in silence. The weight of Lucielle's triumph still lingered, a spark in her chest, but so did the ache of Lila's innocent questions about her father. Simone's jaw tightened, her hand pressing harder on the pencil. She wasn't just rebuilding a career, she was rebuilding herself. Her phone buzzed, a client's email glowing on the screen. "Your vision for the hotel is stunning. Contract's yours." Her lips curved, a flicker of pride flaring through the bruise of Julian's betrayal. She'd landed the Manhattan boutique hotel project, her first major win since stepping back into the world she'd abandoned for him. Her fingers brushed the ultrasound photo tucked into her planner, a quiet vow. For Lila, for the baby, for the woman she'd buried under his shadow. She stood stretching, her black sweater hugging the swell of her belly. The office window framed Soho's pulse, taxis honking, pedestrians weaving. A city that didn't wait. Neither would she. She pinned a new swatch to the board, its emerald green catching the light, a declaration of her return. Lila's drawing, Mommy a Superwoman, cape blazing, hung above her desk, its crayon lines a beacon. She wouldn't let her daughter's trust waver. Not again. The door chimed and Nia breezed in, her grin sharp as a blade. "You're blowing up, girl," she said, tossing a magazine onto the desk. A headline screamed, "Designer Simone Carter redefines luxury." "They're eating up your comeback. Julian's name is barely a footnote." Simone's chest tightened, a mix of triumph and something heavier. Grief, maybe, for the years she'd lost. She flipped open the magazine, scanning the article, her name in bold. No mention of Luciel's bill or Julian's ruin. Just her work, her fire. "Footnotes generous," Simone said, her voice low, edged with steel. Nia laughed, loud and bright, but Simone's eyes drifted to Lila's drawing, her heart clenching. She'd protect that light, no matter the cost. She grabbed her coat, motioning to Nia. "I'm taking Lila to art class. You in for dinner later?" Nia nodded, her eyes softening. "You're killing it, Simone. Don't forget that." At the art school, Lila bounded out, clutching a new sketch. Two stick figures under a sun, labeled Mommy and Me. Simone knelt, her throat tight, and pulled Lila close, the scent of crayons grounding her. "It's perfect, baby," she whispered, her voice thick. Lila's eyes sparkled, but a shadow lingered in her question. "Is Daddy coming to my show next week?" Simone's smile faltered, her hand brushing Lila's curls. "We'll see, sweetheart," she said, the lie bitter on her tongue. She wouldn't let Julian's absence dim her daughter's glow. Later at an industry gala, Simone moved through the crowd, her emerald dress catching the light like a dare. Her belly curved softly beneath the fabric, a quiet strength. She shook hands, pitched her vision, felt the room shift under her presence. Then she saw her, Vanessa Reed, in a corner, her red dress less confident now, her pearls absent. Simone's pulse spiked, but her face stayed smooth, a mask of calm. Vanessa approached, her steps hesitant, her voice low. "Simone, it was a mistake, a weak moment. I'm sorry." Simone's nails bit into her palm, the pain sharp, anchoring. She leaned in, her voice a whisper, cold as ice. "Your weak moment broke my daughter's heart. Live with that." Vanessa's eyes widened, her lips parting, but no words came. Simone turned away, her dress swishing, leaving Vanessa in the crowd's hum, a ghost of her own making. The sting of the encounter lingered, but Simone's shoulders stayed square, her chin high. She wouldn't shrink, not ever again. Back at her desk that night, Simone opened her laptop, emails flooding in. Praise for the hotel project, requests for interviews. One from Claire, her lawyer. Julian's agreed to terms. Custody to you, penthouse, alimony. Final papers next week. Her breath caught, a weight lifting, then settling again. It wasn't victory, not fully. Not when Lila still asked for her father. Simone's hand rested on her belly, the baby's kick a faint pulse of hope. She saved the email, her fingers steady, deliberate, like sketching a final line. She stood crossing to the window, Soho's lights a constellation below. Her reflection stared back, eyes fierce, lines of fatigue etched deep, but alive. She thought of Luciel, the toast that had burned Julian's world, the $100,000 bill a noose he couldn't escape. Her lips curved, sharp and fleeting. She'd turned his betrayal into her stage, and the spotlight was hers now. But the ache remained, for Lila's trust, for the family she dreamed of. She pushed it down, let it fuel her instead. Nia's text buzzed. "Dinner's on me. You're unstoppable." Simone's fingers hovered, then typed, "Just getting started." She glanced at Lila's drawing, the crayon sun blazing. She was no longer the woman who'd waited, who'd trusted too long. She was the designer of her own life, each choice a stroke of her pencil, bold and unapologetic. The gala's hum, Vanessa's faltering apology, Julian's crumbling empire. They were steps in a dance she led. The music was hers now, and she'd play it loud. Simone Carter's breath misted in the crisp autumn air of Central Park, her fingers laced with Lila's as they walked, leaves crunching beneath their boots. The skyline peeked through bare branches, a reminder of the city she'd conquered, but her chest tightened with each of Lila's skips, her daughter's hand warm and trusting. The weight of Julian's betrayal lingered, a shadow she couldn't outrun, not when Lila's eyes still searched for her father. Simone's other hand rested on her belly, the baby's faint kick a pulse of resolve. She'd built a new life, but today she'd face the ghost of the old one. She stopped at a bench, Lila scampering to chase a squirrel, her laughter sharp against the park's quiet. Simone's phone buzzed. Claire's email, papers ready. Julian's visit is scheduled today. Supervised, her jaw clenched, her nails biting into her palm. She'd agreed to this meeting for Lila, not for him. Her eyes tracked her daughter, the sunlight catching her curls and her heart twisted. She'd shield that light, no matter what it cost. Footsteps crunched behind her. Julian approached, his gray coat rumpled, his face gaunt, eyes hollowed by the weight of his unraveling world. "Simone?" he said, his voice low, strained, like a man pleading for air. She stood, her posture rigid, her emerald scarf a slash of defiance against the gray day. "You're here for Lila," she said, her tone flat, a wall he couldn't breach. His gaze flicked to her belly, then away, guilt etched in the lines of his face. Simone hailed a cab, sliding into the back seat, the leather cool against her skin. "Brooklyn," she said, her voice steady, a command. The driver nodded and the city blurred past, a kaleidoscope of lights. She leaned back, her hand resting on her belly, and let the night's triumph settle into her bones. Julian thought he could erase her, rewrite their story with Vanessa's name. He was wrong. She'd rewritten it herself, with fire and truth. The cab's radio hummed softly, a jazz tune that matched the rhythm of her thoughts. She pictured the envelope on the table, Julian's hands trembling as he opened it, the $100,000 bill a noose around his pride. Her lips curved, not quite a smile. This was just the opening act. She'd protect Lila, her unborn child, her own heart. The war wasn't over, but tonight she'd drawn first blood, and it tasted like freedom. Simone Carter stood at the penthouse window, the Manhattan skyline a jagged pulse against the dawn. Her fingers grazed the cool glass, her breath fogging faintly, as Lila's soft snores drifted from the bedroom. The weight of last night's triumph at Le Ciel clung to her like perfume, sharp, intoxicating, but edged with a bruise that lingered in her chest. The memory of Julian's ashen face, Vanessa's trembling hands, fueled her. Yet her heart ached for the life she'd thought was hers. She pressed her palm to her belly, feeling the faint flutter of her unborn child, and her jaw tightened. This wasn't over, not yet. Her phone buzzed on the counter, a relentless hum. Notifications piled up, text from Nia, a screenshot of a gossip column. Dr. Julian Brooks' mystery wedding at Le Ciel. Who's the pregnant wife? Simone's lips twitched, a flicker of dark satisfaction. The story had spread, a wildfire she'd ignited, scorching Julian's pristine reputation. She scrolled through X, where colleagues whispered, "Heard Brooks ditched his wife for Reed." Classy. Her pulse quickened, but her hands stayed steady, tucking the phone away as Lila padded into the kitchen, rubbing sleepy eyes. "Mommy, are we making pancakes?" Lila asked, her voice a soft melody. Simone knelt, brushing a curl from her daughter's face, her fingers trembling slightly. "Blueberry ones, your favorite," she said, forcing warmth into her voice. Lila grinned, oblivious to the storm her mother had unleashed. Simone stood, her movements mechanical as she mixed batter, the whisk scrape a rhythm to anchor her. But her eyes darted to the laptop, open to an email from her lawyer, Claire. "Ready to file. Custody, assets, alimony. Call me." Simone's chest tightened, a mix of dread and resolve. The doorbell chimed, sharp and jarring. Simone's spine stiffened, her hand pausing mid-stir. She wiped her hands, glancing at Lila, who was stacking blueberries into a smiley face. "Stay here, sweetheart," she said, her voice calm but edged. She opened the door, and there stood Julian, his tie askew, eyes bloodshot, a man unraveling. "Simone," he said, his voice low, raw. "What the hell was that last night?" His hand gestured wildly, as if he could claw back the scene at Le Ciel. She stepped aside, letting him in, her face a mask of cool detachment. "Lila's in the kitchen," she said, her tone flat, a warning. Julian's eyes darted past her, softening briefly, then hardening again. "You humiliated me," he hissed, keeping his voice low. "$100 grand? A wedding? You've lost it." Simone's lips pressed into a thin line, her nails biting into her palms. She pulled the credit card statement from her pocket, unfolding it with deliberate care, and slid it across the counter. "Paris, Cartier, Vanessa. You lost me first." Julian's face drained of color, his hand twitching toward the paper but stopping short. "Simone, he started, but she cut him off, her voice a blade, low and lethal. "Don't. You don't get to explain away 8 years of us." Her eyes burned, but she blinked back the sting, refusing to let him see her crack. She pulled out her phone, opening the Paris hotel email, Vanessa's Instagram post, the damning pearls. "You thought I wouldn't notice?" she said, her voice steady despite the ache in her throat. "You thought I'd stay quiet?" Julian's shoulders sagged, his hands clenching. "It was a mistake," he said, his voice cracking, a plea she didn't want. "I'll fix it. For Lila, for the baby." Simone's laugh was sharp, a sound that cut the air. "You fixed nothing when you chose her." She stepped closer, her eyes locking on his, unyielding. "I've got a lawyer, Julian. Custody, the penthouse, everything. You'll pay for every lie." "I want to fix this," he said, stepping closer, his hands open, palms up. "For her, for the baby. I messed up, Simone, but I'm still their father." Her laugh was sharp, a blade slicing the air. "You stopped being that when you left her for Vanessa." Her voice was low, controlled, but her fingers trembled, betraying the storm inside. She thought of Lila's drawing, mother and daughter under a crayon sun, no father in sight. Her chest ached, but she held his gaze, unyielding. Julian's shoulders slumped, his eyes glistening. "I'm sorry," he whispered, the words heavy, broken. "I didn't mean to hurt her. Or you." Simone's nails dug deeper, the pain grounding her. She stepped closer, her voice a hiss. "You didn't mean to. You chose her, Julian. Every dinner, every necklace, every lie. You chose." Her eyes burned, but she blinked back the sting, refusing to let him see her falter. Lila ran back, clutching a leaf, her smile bright but hesitant. "Daddy," she cried, throwing her arms around him. Julian knelt, hugging her tightly, his breath hitching. Simone watched, her heart a knot of love and fury. She wanted to pull Lila away, to erase him from her daughter's world, but she stood still, her hands clenched. Lila deserved this moment, even if it cut Simone to the bone. "Look, Mommy, I found a heart leaf," Lila said, holding it up, her eyes searching Simone's for approval. Simone knelt, forcing a smile, her fingers brushing Lila's cheek. "It's perfect, baby," she said, her voice soft, a shield against the chaos. She glanced at Julian, his eyes pleading, and handed him Lila's drawing from her bag. 2 stick figures, no father. "She drew this," she said, her tone cold. "You're not in it." Julian's face crumpled, his hands shaking as he took the paper. "Simone, please," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Don't take her from me." She stood towering over him, her scarf catching the wind like a banner. "You did that yourself," she said, each word a stone. "You get supervised visits. That's more than you deserve." Her voice trembled, but her eyes were steel, locking onto his until he looked away. Lila tugged Julian's hand, oblivious, pointing to a duck on the pond. "Come see," she said, pulling him along. Simone followed at a distance, her arms crossed, her heart pounding. She watched him kneel beside Lila, his smile strained, and felt no pity. He'd built this cage. Let him live in it. A couple passed by, whispering, one pointing at Julian. "Isn't that the doctor from the Le Ciel thing?" Simone's lips twitched, a flicker of dark triumph. The city was talking, and his name was poison now. The hour passed and Julian hugged Lila goodbye, his eyes lingering on Simone. "We can work this out," he said, his voice desperate. She shook her head, her hand on Lila's shoulder. "Sign the papers, Julian. It's done." She turned, guiding Lila away, the crunch of leaves loud in her ears. Lila waved back, Her leaf clutched tight, and Simone's throat burned, but she kept walking, her steps steady. Her phone buzzed as they reached the park's edge. Claire. Julian's lawyer caved. Full custody, penthouse, alimony secured. Simone's breath caught, a weight lifting, then settling again. Victory, but not without cost. Lila's voice broke through, small and searching. Will Daddy come to my art show? Simone knelt, cupping her daughter's face, her thumbs brushing soft cheeks. Mommy's got you always, she said, dodging the question, her heart cracking. They walked hand in hand, the skyline gleaming ahead, a promise of something new. Simone's hand rested on her belly, the baby's kick a spark of hope. She'd face Julian, not with screams but with truth, and won. But the war was for Lila's heart, for the life she was building. Her steps quickened, her scarf trailing like a flag. She wasn't done fighting, and she never would be. Simone Carter's bare feet pressed against the hardwood of her Brooklyn apartment, the warmth of the floor grounding her as laughter spilled from the kitchen. The scent of fresh-baked cookies mingled with Lila's chatter, her 6-year-old hands dusted with flour, shaping dough into lopsided stars. Simone's fingers brushed her belly, the swell now pronounced, a quiet pulse of life beneath her sweater. The skyline glittered beyond the window. New York's lights a constellation she'd claimed as her own. The divorce was final, Julian's name a fading echo, but the scars he left still whispered in Lila's questions, in the weight Simone carried alone. Tonight, though, the air felt lighter, alive. She leaned against the counter, watching Lila stack cookies, her curls bouncing with each giggle. Mommy, this one's for you, Lila said, holding up a star, its edges uneven but glowing with pride. Simone's throat tightened, her smile soft, real. It's perfect, baby, she said, her voice thick, catching Lila's hand to kiss her flour-dusted fingers. The apartment, smaller than the penthouse but hers, hummed with warmth. Lila's drawings on the fridge, fabric swatches for her next project pinned to a corkboard. This was her world now, built from her own hands. The doorbell chimed and Nia swept in, arms full of wine and takeout bags, her grin wide. Brooklyn's treating you right, huh? She said, setting the bags down. Behind her, colleagues from Simone's design firm and parents from Lila's art school trickled in, their voices a bright hum. Simone's chest swelled, a mix of pride and something softer. Gratitude, maybe, for this makeshift family. She'd invited them for a quiet celebration, not of the divorce or Julian's fall, but of her rise. Her fingers brushed the magazine on the counter, its headline bold. Simone Carter redefines luxury. Her name, her work, her triumph. Speech, Nia called, raising a glass of sparkling cider, her eyes glinting with mischief. The room laughed, glasses clinking, and Simone stepped forward, her sweater loose over her belly, her presence steady, commanding. To new beginnings, she said, her voice clear, echoing the toast she'd wielded at Le Ciel, but softer now, stripped of venom. To Lila, to this baby, to us. Her eyes met Lila's, sparkling with trust and her heart clenched, a fierce love anchoring her. The room cheered, but Lila's voice cut through, small and bright. To Mommy, the superhero! Simone's eyes stung, but she blinked it away, raising her cider in return. She moved through the crowd, shaking hands, accepting hugs, her smile genuine but guarded. A colleague whispered, "The hotel project's a game changer. You're unstoppable." Simone nodded, her fingers tightening around her glass. The praise a balm, but not a cure. She thought of Julian's last plea in the park, his crumpled face as he held Lila's drawing. She'd let go of the anger, not for him but for herself, to free her heart for her children. The scars remained, Lila's nightmares, the baby's future without a father. But they were hers, proof of survival. Lila tugged her sleeve, holding up a new drawing. A woman, a girl, a baby under a rainbow. It's us, Mommy, she said, her eyes wide, searching. Simone knelt, pulling her close, the paper crinkling between them. Always us, she whispered, her voice thick, her lips brushing Lila's forehead. The weight of Lila's trust settled into her bones, a vow she'd never break. She stood, pinning the drawing to the fridge, its colors a defiance against the gray of her past. Her phone buzzed. Claire. Final papers signed. You're free. Simone's breath caught, a weight lifting, then settling into something new. Certainty. She'd won the penthouse, custody, alimony, but the real victory was this apartment, this life, this moment. She glanced at the crowd, Nia's laugh ringing out, and felt the city's pulse sync with her own. Her hand rested on her belly, the baby's kick a spark of hope. She'd faced Julian, Vanessa, the whispers of doubt, and emerged unbroken. Later, alone on the balcony, Simone sipped cider, the night air cool against her skin. The skyline shimmered, a tapestry of possibility. She thought of Le Ciel, the $100,000 bill, the toast that had burned Julian's world. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about her strength, her art, her children. Her fingers traced the glass's rim, her reflection faint in the window. The woman staring back had lines of fatigue, but eyes alight with fire. She'd rebuilt her world, brick by brick, and it was stronger than the one she'd lost. Lila's voice called from inside. "Mommy, come see the stars." Simone turned, stepping back into the warmth, where Lila pointed at the cookie tray, her star shapes uneven but radiant. "They're like us," Lila said, grinning. Simone laughed, the sound rich, unburdened, and pulled her daughter close. "Exactly like us," she said, her voice steady, a promise. The city hummed beyond. But here, in this moment, she had everything she needed. She raised her glass to the empty balcony, a silent toast. "To me," she whispered, her breath mingling with the night. The stars above blinked as if in answer, and Simone smiled, fierce and free. The war was over, and she'd won. Not just against Julian, but for herself, for Lila, for the child yet to come. The skyline stretched before her, a canvas of light, and she was ready to paint it anew. Simone Carter stood on her balcony, the city's pulse a quiet hum beneath the stars. Her fingers grazed the cider glass, its cool rim grounding her as Lila's laughter echoed inside. The scars of Julian's betrayal lingered, faint but indelible, yet they no longer bled. She'd turned his lies into her fire, forging a life unyielding and bright. For Lila, for the baby, for herself. The skyline glittered, a canvas of her triumph. She raised her glass, a silent vow. "I am enough." Simone smiled, fierce, free, ready to soar. The night was hers and the stars agreed.